possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, as many of you know, Donald Trump has been egging on these fanatics. He called on them to march on the Capitol. He talked about how they need to show strength. He talked about how weakness won't get things done, basically. And he basically encouraged them to march on the Capitol. He encouraged them to take action. Um, and we know how that turned out. Also there were other speakers there. Donald Trump's own attorney, Rudy Giuliani, was out there uh, telling the people to engage in trial by combat, egging on this violence. And as a result of this, five people lost their lives. One was a police officer. Uh, there's video of these protesters, these rioters, beating a police officer. The police officer's on the ground. He's surrounded by several protesters who are beating him and all that kind of stuff on the video. Um, and so one of these officers lost his life. You had a woman get shot, trying to break into the Capitol, the Senate floor, and all that kind of stuff. She was shot and killed, shot in the neck and bled to death. And then you had three other people who died from medical complications. And you have people still outraged. A lot of these people that marched on the Capitol, they are still outraged. And there are FBI reports of possible threats, possible staged armed protests around the country at various state capitals. So this is a highly volatile and dangerous situation, and the flames have been fanned by Donald Trump. So what has happened is various social media have tried to shut down Trump to avoid, any further incitement of violence. So you had Twitter shut down his account permanently. You had Facebook shut him down. And now YouTube is also shutting down Donald Trump, so he can't stoke, this violence or encourage people to engage in this foolishness that has resulted in an insurrection, and probably more violence will occur. So, you had groups like the ACLU and other attorneys raise questions about uh, the issue of free speech, the impact that these social media companies have on free speech. And they're basically complaining about how these companies have unchecked uh, abilities to shut down people's right to speak and all that kind of stuff. And they're not necessarily saying that it violates the First Amendment, because the First Amendment applies to states trying to censor speech. It doesn't apply to private companies that have the right to decide what kind of content they would like on their platforms and stuff. But they're expressing concern about the impact that it will have on people's ability to communicate and to relay messages. Um, and basically, one of the points that they brought out was this. They basically said, well, if Twitter can shut down a president, a rich president, from speaking and stuff like that, what does that mean for black and brown faces, black and brown people? Like, what does it mean, and what kind of impact will that have on black and brown people? Like, will they use that same kind of power to shut down the voices of dissent among so-called minorities in this country, like black people, black advocates such as myself, shut us down if they disagree with what we have to say. So that was one of the concerns that they have expressed, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts about it. Social media is a great thing because it shuts down the gatekeepers. Like, no longer do you have to go on these major networks to convey a message. No longer do you have to go through them. Anybody with a cell phone um, or webcam can communicate to thousands of people instantly. And I think that that is a great thing for democracy. That's a powerful tool. And if these social media outlets clamp down on, the ability of people to convey messages that will inhibit our speech, obviously. But I don't think that this situation involving Trump um, necessarily means that it's going to be bad for black people that have voices here on social media. Because I mean, here's a situation where, and I think that what the social media did was justified, because here you had somebody stoking and instigating and inciting violence against the government and against people and stuff like that. So I think that uh, first of all, people don't have a right to incite violence. Like there's no constitutional right for somebody to incite violence. People can go to jail for inciting violence and stuff like that. There's a difference between free speech and actually promoting crime and violence. Those are two different things. Um, so that's one thing, and I think that it's reasonable for social media to shut down that kind of speech where somebody's actually inciting violence. Because the first thing that people will do is they will attack social media, just as they have already done, to say that social media didn't do enough to prevent this type of violence from occurring and stuff. So it's like a catch-22. Like if these companies decide to regulate this type of this type of speech that incites violence, then they're, on one hand they're condemned as, uh, violating free speech, and then if they don't do anything, then they're considered to be like aiding and abetting violence and stuff. So it's a catch-22. So I agree, like in situations where somebody is inciting violence or if they're using social media to encourage the violation of law, I think that, social media has every right to decide to shut down that particular speech. Um, but it may be like a slippery slope. Maybe it'll start with, oh, you're inciting violence, or oh, and then from there go to like, oh, we don't want people to express certain types of views. So it is something that needs to be monitored and stuff like that. And there should be some kind of better regulations on social media because a lot of times it's very arbitrary what they do. So my basic point is I think that what they did was appropriate in this case, to shut down Donald Trump because he was inciting violence. But at the same time, I think that social media needs to be more regulated so that they cannot arbitrarily shut down voices that they don't like simply because of the message that they are conveying. If that message doesn't, promote crime or violence or something like that. So those are my thoughts about it. Tell me what you all think. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. Have a great day.